Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. I do work with both dismissive avoidant and fearful avoidance, but they're typically more leaning avoidant. I work with individuals and couples. I work with some anxious individuals, but not really as much. So sometimes my information with anxious preoccupied might be a little bit off the mark just because I have a little bit less experience. I do want to mention though, every individual is different. And when I'm discussing things on these videos or sharing things with you guys, that doesn't mean it's a one size fits all. It could very well, every individual is different and nobody fits one category 100%. You could have a partner that's more leaning a certain way and still have traits of other attachment styles as well. It's just every single person is different. It's also important to realize that this comes from trauma. So let's kind of quickly discuss what this video is about. A little bit about why we're doing this and kind of moving from there so I can kind of give you some key points so that I can help you guys to have more fulfilling and happy relationships. So the first one, the main thing is I'm making this video to help you guys learn how to attract an avoidant partner back to you. This doesn't necessarily mean you guys are broken up, but more so when there's a kind of like a dent in the relationship, something that created some sort of distance. Now, this could work with individuals who are broken up, but it's kind of more challenging because a lot of these interventions, well, I can't really say interventions because it's in a video, but a lot of these techniques, I'll say techniques, they can be more helpful when you are communicating with one another. Trust is really important with avoidance, so this is more likely to be more beneficial if you guys already have some trust, both of you guys, with each other. I hope that makes sense. I do want to mention that the reason why avoidant individuals may lose attraction doesn't really have to do with you. It can, just like anybody else, but a lot of times avoidants lose attraction for other specific reasons. And some of them could include, and I've seen this with one of my patients where, actually, I'm going to change a little bit of things when I explain things about my patients, by the way. He was actually in my office in-person session, and he was mentioning how he's pulling away from intimacy, like bedroom intimacy, and he doesn't know why. And he mentioned that he thinks the reason is because they moved in together, and he's had issues before. Like, I've worked with him before he started this relationship. And he thinks the reason is because the mystery is gone, and he doesn't know how to be himself. When they were in the more dating phase, he was able to feel like he could put on a show. A lot of avoidants do that when they're first dating. They can kind of be somebody different, kind of, to attract a partner, but they're not doing it to trick you guys. They're doing it because they're embarrassed with who they really are. And so now that this patient, he's really worked hard to make adjustments. Like, it wasn't easy, but he worked hard. They call each other boyfriend, girlfriend, which is really hard for him because before labels were really hard. She wanted to move in. For him, financially, it was a better option because he was going through, I don't want to get into too much details, but that was a good option for him. So now, logically, he decided that was a good idea. Emotionally, it was hard, but he decided it was an option for him. Once he actually moved in, he started noticing he's pulling away. However, he was talking to me about the fact that he actually feels like his feelings for her are much deeper, that he wants to be with her. He never even said this before, but he said he wants to get married to her and wants to have kids with her. Like, he can see a life with her. And so why then is, if he's telling me genuinely, I care about this woman, why is he pulling away bedroom wise? He's saying that he's noticing that he's spacing out more. And he was coming to me, why do I do this? I know that this happens, but what is the reason? He told me that he thinks the reason is, which I agree with him, he's actually really afraid to give himself to this relationship. So what I told him is that sometimes you have to, that it's maladaptive. So don't let the maladaptive strategy run the show. You have to take control. Don't let the fear, the attachment style, take the driver's seat. You take the driver's seat, right? You want this girl. You don't want it to fail. Again, he's had many failed relationships, and most of it was because of his attachment issues. You want to heal. You want to get better. You've already done some of the work. You've already made it this far. Don't give up. Go ahead and sometimes push yourself, even if you're not wanting to, and see how you feel. And then we in session can talk about it and process it. So why did I bring that to you? Because a lot of times, if avoidants are pulling away, it's not because of you. I know sometimes it feels like it's because of you, but it's not. And so that's why I brought that up, because sometimes avoidants, they're not as aware as he is. He's been working with me for a while. In the beginning, he had no idea. We had to process these things together. It took years for him to get to this point. So your partner may tell you that it's you and they may be wrong. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. Nobody knows themselves that well. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. So why do avoidants become the way that they do? A lot of times when they were younger, they had to put away their feelings in account for somebody else. And their only option to get some certain type of love was to shut down. So maybe their dad was really hard towards them and told them if you show emotions, then it means that you're weak. And then his dad would pull away from him, right? Or her, whatever. This is just an example. It makes them realize they can't get their parental love unless they pull their emotions away. So in their mind, subconsciously, love equates to them being distant. Do you see how that makes sense? And I might need to explain that a little bit more further in another video, but basically what I'm trying to say is in their mind, in order for them to secure love, subconsciously, they think they have to shut down as much as possible because their parents reinforced that. Basically, their parents were saying, I can't love you if you're too emotional. And so in their mind, when someone is close to them, their partner, when relationship gets deeper, that's their subconscious cue to think, okay, now I got to shut down. But they know that this is not making sense. So they are battling this. They're not knowing what's going on. They're unhealed. And so them shutting down and pulling away, it really doesn't have to do with you. It has to do with their childhood. Just something I want you to understand. And so that can help as to why it's important if an avoidant wants to heal and you guys want this relationship to work, we have to fight some of these issues. Attracting an avoidant back to you does not mean it's manipulation because we're not trying to manipulate the partner. We're trying to heal them, right? If they wanted to genuinely leave, that's very different. But if it's their maladaptive strategies, that's not going to help them. They're going to be this cycle forever. That's not healthy. We have to heal those things. I hope that makes sense. So when an avoidant is distant and you feel like the relationship is in jeopardy, right? These strategies may help you. Typically what happens is the avoidant may shut down when emotions are higher, right? Because they don't know what else to do. So that could mean that there's more fighting or there's more love, honestly. And that can make them shut down and communicate less. So understand that means that your partner doesn't necessarily mean your partner doesn't love you or they're out of love with you. They just can't feel their feelings because there's a lot of other deactivation strategies going on that's deactivating a lot of their emotions. Does that make sense? So if your partner is experiencing this detachment, whether it's from real or perceived fears, you as the partner may feel resentment, and they may also feel resentment towards a lot of what they perceive as chaos. And they really may close off and shut down. They may even feel cold. And then you may feel unappreciated. And then they also feel unappreciated. So there's a lot of things that's going on at once. And so it's my hope that I will be able to help you by clearing some of the smoke so that you guys can know what's going on. So avoidants tend to be initially and overall attracted to individuals who are selfless and loving. However, typically what happens with this dynamic is that in long-term partners, they still want you as an individual to be more independent so that they feel like they can handle some of the situation because you being more independent allows them to have more space so that they can kind of work towards managing their own feelings. Because like we talked about earlier in the video, they think that love means distance to some extent. So if you're not being but if you're not being independent, allowing some of those gaps of time, it doesn't have to be a lot. I'm not saying like a week or even a day. I'm just saying in general, consistently, a little bit more space throughout, a little bit more independence. That makes them understand this is what love feels like. It helps them to understand because that's just what they're used to. And it's not necessarily something that can be 100% disappeared in one day. They have to work slowly towards that. So in order for you to help them know this is love, this is healthy, you have to somehow manage some of those experiences from their early childhood. And they have to do the same with you, right? You guys might think that love is more connecting or you need a lot more reassurance. That's what you want love to be like, right? And you might feel like love is a bit more up and down, back and forth, volatile because you saw that with your parents. So by adding more communication, and understanding that both of your perceptions might be a little unhealthy, but somehow meeting in the middle is a really good way for you to attract your partner back, as well as you guys to both feel satisfied. But it takes a lot of work. It's important to realize that they were conditioned to be more independent, so they just understand that a little bit more. So let's talk about a little bit of misconceptions, and then we're going to go into the actual points. So a misconception, which I brought early in this video, is that you as the partner, you sometimes blame yourself for the reason you don't realize it, but you think it's your fault that the relationship is failing. So you try to rekindle the relationship by using methods that are emotional connection that are familiar to you. However, what ends up happening is your partner is not familiar with this connection, and so you feel rejected. This is extremely common. And then what ends up happening is when you feel rejected, you flip the blame on your partner and you tell your partner, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, and it might not be you, I'm just saying you as a general, right? The partner you may feel as a partner, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling angry, you're not understanding what's going on. You're telling your partner that they're broken. Avoidants are all evil. I hate them. Using really strong terms, right? And your partner has no idea what's going on because the bids of emotional connection that you were throwing towards them, they didn't even know what that was. I'm going to give an example. And I've seen this with some patients, okay? This is another couple, and I'm going to change things up. But he was pulling away in the bedroom. And this happens a lot. And what she started to do is she tried to lose weight. She tried to wear more revealing clothes around him. She tried to initiate more. And that actually made him pull away more because it was a lot of emotion that he didn't understand. And she got frustrated because she thought he was being evil, and she used a lot of negative terms and saying that he was, there's a lot of problems, which is true. But she's like, he's cruel, he's rejecting me. And I had to mention to both of them, these methods that you're using are the methods that would help you. You're not using methods that help him. You're using methods that you're familiar with. And that's hard for people to hear, but it's true. What kind of method and that's why he doesn't do those things, because he uses the methods that work for him, but you don't understand them. So for example, he can change your tire, and to him that's an act of love, but you think that's just, you didn't ask for your tire to be changed. So why does that matter? And she feels frustrated because her act of love is not being recognized. And then he feels frustrated because his act of love is not being recognized. So what does he do when he feels frustrated? He shuts down. What does she do when she's frustrated? She confronts him. And now it's clashing even more. And the whole dynamic is spinning out into a different proportion, not a healthy one. And they get confused. So what does that mean? And why am I telling you that? Your attempts as a partner to win your partner's love might be pushing them away instead of you actually trying to think, what do they want? Right? So an example could be, let's say you're trying to sell somebody a TV, right? You're not going to say, oh, I love TVs. This is a flat screen. It's easy to carry. I don't need two people to mount it on my wall. This is great. This is a good price range. You're going to like this TV. You would not say, this is what I want in a TV. You're going to think about what they want in a TV. That sounds like a really weird example, but psychologically, that's also how it works. Subconsciously, we always think about, everybody's like this. We think about what we want. But when we're thinking about sales, we can realize, okay, the opposite of this is we're supposed to get them to understand what they want. Does that make sense? When we're thinking about emotions and love, we don't realize that we have to do that same tactic sometimes, not in a manipulative way, in a way where we're trying to care for our partner. What does our partner need to bid connection? They don't need you to lose weight and wear certain clothes and initiate. Maybe what they need is for you to acknowledge that they changed your tire, or for you to ask, I really appreciate that you did that. Can you please accompany me to my surgery next week? They will probably be happy to do that. Or can you pick me up? Whatever it is. And they feel like, okay, I can give my partner love in this way. So that's a huge common misconception. I hope that makes sense. And this is the other one, another common misconception. And this is a patient that I worked with for a while. So I know he's got a lot of issues. So it doesn't mean that I'm taking what he says. I take anything that my patients say with a grain of salt. And I'm going to change things up. But one thing my patient said, so his partner was complaining that she doesn't compliment him enough. And her misconception is that if she compliments him, he's going to compliment her. That's a misconception, because what did he tell me in session? I'll tell you. He told me he doesn't even need his partner to compliment him. This is not healthy, by the way, and we are working on that. But he said he thinks compliments are unnecessary. And like it doesn't help him at all. Like her complimenting him like literally doesn't make any sense to him. He told me this. Like he said the word, I think it's unnecessary. And then I said, well, what do you think is necessary? And he told me this. He said, I would rather her respect the things that I'm trying to tell her. I don't think she would have ever correlated that. So what are some of those things that he's trying to tell her? Well, sometimes he tells her, I'm not a very affectionate person, but I'm trying. Maybe she can hear that and respect that he's trying and he's telling me the truth. I can't change him. I can't just say, okay, I know he's not affectionate, but let me turn him into someone who's affectionate. That's not fair for him. He's not affectionate, but he's trying. Him saying I'm trying is his form of love. So now that we got some of those misconceptions out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about what we can do, right? To attract your partner back to you and continue to keep attracting your partner. And every person's different. Like I had mentioned, I don't know much about anxious individuals. I work with more avoidants, but this formula, an anxious version has one too. I don't necessarily know what it is as clearly, but you as anxious partners or whatever your, attachment style is, you guys have your own version of what attracts you guys. Maybe you guys need reassurance. You guys need more hugging, kissing, more frequent visits. That's what helps you guys. We're going to talk about what helps the avoidant so you guys can meet together in the middle, have a healthy relationship. So the first one is that you take care of yourself and love yourself, including nurturing your job, your physical health, and your hobbies. Basically, in short, you're more independent. So I'm going to give an example. I'm going to change it up as I do between my patients. So the female is anxious, preoccupied, and the male is dismissive, avoidant, okay? He's very clear, he's very direct, he's very honest, and he's very avoidant. She is a little more indirect. Her emotions go all over the place. She's very sweet, by the way, very sweet. But sometimes she gets scared to admit how she's really feeling, so she doesn't tell him, and he doesn't have a clue what's going on. So that's their dynamic, right? And so what happened is he's also much more social than she is. And so when he's going out with friends, she gets really anxious, and she's afraid that he's going to meet somebody and leave her. She's told me that. She doesn't need to tell him that directly, but what ends up happening is she gets really angry, she gets in her head, and she starts messaging him continuously. What's going on? Who are you talking to? Why are you taking so long to answer my text? Because in her mind, she's thinking, he's cheating on me. And in his mind, he's like, wait, what is going on? Why is she feeling this way? I didn't even do anything. I'm just going out with a friend, a male friend, by the way, and he's attracted to females. So he's like, what is going on? So in his mind, he's like, okay, I'm not going to answer that until I'm done hanging out with my friend, because maybe it has nothing to do with me and she needs time to calm down, because he needs that, right? He needs time to calm down. So now he's giving her space and she's thinking that he's ignoring her. So she's doing it more. And so when we talked about this in session, he basically told me this. He wishes that she had more hobbies and more interests so that she would understand that he's just out here doing his interests. It has nothing to do with her. He's not ignoring her. And that clicked for her because she realized, oh, I'm not really doing much right now. She works part-time. She's trying to get more hours, but she doesn't have much else going on with her life. And that's not a bad thing, but it makes her not understand that he's not ignoring her. He just has other things going on, but he does love her. And he has told her that he loves her, by the way. So I'm not just saying that. Like, he does love her, and he's asking for her to be more independent. And he's really working on healing. I think he speaks a little harsh to her, which can make her spiral, but we're working on that. But when he told her that she needs hobbies, It's not that he doesn't want her around. He just wants a more healthy relationship. When he's saying that, he's saying indirectly and directly, I want this to work. Let's do this. Let's try this. And she's trying it and it is working. Because how do I know this is working? He actually mentioned, it was really quick too, like a couple weeks after, we talked about this, we've had more sessions, and he actually admitted, I'm thinking maybe we could move in together, which is huge because that's something that they've been avoiding. So this is working. It works for them. It doesn't work for everyone, but it works for them. Every couple's different. The next one is you have to stand up for yourself without being demanding. Okay? I'm going to explain this because a lot of people don't understand how to stand up for yourself without being demanding. And it's a hard topic. Okay. I'm going to give an example of a couple that at this point, they're pretty much healed and secure. They've been together for almost 5.5 years. So they're at the point where they're both really secure now, but they didn't start that way. Okay. The female, fearful avoidant, leaning avoidant actually. So it's a really interesting case. And the male is dismissive avoidant, but he's not that dismissive avoidant. So that could be why this worked. I'm changing things up a little bit. So let's just say this is an example. I'm not going to really say it's my patients. It's an example of my patients, right? In the beginning, he would cancel on her a lot. Avoidants do that and it's not healthy. So yeah, of course, he's a dismissive avoidant. She's fearful avoidant. And so in her mind, she spiraled, she pulled back, she pulled forward, whatever else. And then one day she just told him, and it was literally by text message because she didn't even wait. She just texted him, I cannot handle you canceling. Let's figure out a way for us to meet in the middle so that this doesn't happen. Whatever your reason is for canceling, let's just figure it out so that this doesn't happen because I don't like canceling. And he said, basically along the lines, I don't like doing that to you either. My reason is that you're too rigid with the days that we can see each other. And he said he likes to unwind on certain days, and those days he just is stuck in his ways. He admitted he's stubborn. He said, I'm really stubborn and I'm stuck in my ways. I don't want to see anyone after work. I don't want to see anyone. Can we just do a easy, relaxed day like a Sunday, like breakfast? I don't care, but I don't like seeing people after work because I am tired. That was the reason he was canceling. Should he have told her? Yes. He wasn't really aware of it though. And so by her standing up for herself and saying, I cannot do this. Tell me what's going on. I don't care what it takes for me to meet you in the middle. Whatever it is, canceling's got to stop. How can we get there? It worked. It was great. And yeah, they don't do that anymore. Like I said, that was in the beginning of their relationship. I wasn't even their therapist at that time. They didn't have a therapist. But she did tell me that was something that she did. And we talked about using that method more now, but they're basically secure. They don't need me really anymore. But the years that we've worked with, those are the methods that we continue to use. Be bold, stand up for yourself, but be willing to meet in the middle. You see how she said, I don't care what I have to do or you have to do. Let's just get there. And so he felt like, okay, I can do that. I can't hang out after work. I don't like to. I'm not doing anything. I'm reading my book. But I'm like this. So she said, okay, let's designate Sunday. Most of the Sundays we'll hang out Sunday morning, get breakfast, or Sunday night, whatever. That worked for them. It's been working for years. They're really happy. Does it work for everybody? No, but it does work. So let's go ahead. And the third one is logic versus emotional expression. So let me explain this. It doesn't mean you can't be emotional, but it means that you can be emotional while expressing yourself directly, right? So let's go ahead and use that example, the fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant example that we just talked about, right? What did she do? She didn't blow up. She didn't scream. She was mad. But what she did is she put her foot down and she said, this is logically something that's happening. You're canceling a lot. He doesn't always do it, but he did do it. She mentioned, I don't like this. There's her emotional piece, but she didn't say it in an emotional way. I can't handle this. What can we do to make this stop? What can we do together? Logic. Let's work as a team. What do I have to do? And she even mentioned, should I expect that we see each other less often? And he said, no, I don't want to do that. What is it? Then what should we do? So they met in the middle. Logic. Let's find the problem together logically instead of, you have a problem. Why are you always canceling on me? I hate avoidants. They're all so bad. That's emotional. He's not going to hear that. He's going to say, she doesn't want to make this work. She just wants to yell at me. Right? So that's a great way to always remember in the back of your mind. It's hard. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's really hard. But if you want to make this work, and a lot of you guys are in relationships for a long period, right? Is it worth breaking up? Maybe. But maybe it's worth giving it a shot, especially if you guys love each other, right? The next one, and this is similar to the first one, it's direct communication versus indirect, okay? So this is an example of, I'm going to change things up, but a fearful avoidant female and then an anxious preoccupied male. So this is based on one of my patients, changing some things. She works in a pretty high stress job. His job is not as stressful, right? And so what he's been doing, which is not helping at all, and she had no clue. After work, she gets really tired and she just like decompresses. She sits on the sofa and she just scrolls through the TV. She's going through channels. And then she just stops at one, watches it for a little bit, and then she goes and changes it again. Like she's just doing it to like rest her brain before she goes and cooks dinner, right? And what he's doing is he's sitting next to her, and he admitted this in session, by the way, purposely sitting like far from her on the sofa in hopes that she would notice that they're not cuddling. And she's not noticing anything. First of all, she's leaning avoidant, so she's not a very affectionate person. Second, she's tired. And third, she's like, her brain is like, she's zapped. She had a rough day. She's not thinking and noticing your subtle cues of you sitting on the other side of the sofa, pouting. And I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm being genuine. That's what it sounded like to me. Trying to get her attention and not telling her you want to cuddle. That's not fair at all. So what I told him during session, and she literally was like, oh, I didn't even know that was happening. And he's like, I've been doing it for weeks. Every day after work. And she's like, oh, I just thought you needed space. I thought you were just watching TV with me. Literally, she had no clue. What does that mean? His indirect communication is not landing with her. Why did I give you that example? Because don't you think it would have been easier if he said, can we just cuddle? And you know what's so funny? I said to her, well, I'm going to change things, but basically, would you be okay if he just said that? Would you cuddle? And she said, yeah. So he wasted all these weeks not getting his needs met when he could have just asked her and they could have been fine. I found that so silly because I understand where he's coming from. Like, you know, he has his own attachment style. She has her own. But I think it's so silly because it was so unnecessary. They could have been cuddling the whole time. So please, if you can relate to that, just tell your partner. They can't read your mind. They don't understand. And in your mind, you think you're being direct because it would be really obvious to you, but it's not obvious to them. I'm being honest. It is not obvious. She literally had no clue for weeks. So just remember that. Please try to keep that in mind. Okay. The next one is let the avoidant take some control of the relationship as well. Okay. So what does that mean? I had mentioned earlier the compliment example, right? Where one patient told me they don't even need compliments. And she was like, she really wants compliments. His way of taking control is to admit he only wants to compliment her when it's really, really genuine. But she was like, no, you should compliment me every day. So let him have some control too, which means meet in the middle. That makes sense. I appreciate you only wanting to compliment me when it's genuine. Do you think that you could sometimes, if you're feeling something towards me or you like my outfit or anything, you could say it out loud? Because sometimes what happens is people feel a way, but they don't say it just because they're not really thinking it's that important. So you can say, if it's genuine, that's fine. But could you just make a point to say your genuine feelings more often? And that landed with him. Yes, I can do that. That worked for him. But you see how we let him have some control as well. It's not just her way. It's his way too. I hope that makes sense. The next one is nurture who they are instead of always trying to change them. This example I'm going to give you is a little bit interesting. And it does have a bit of a family dynamic as well. So it's not totally romantic relationship, but I feel like it helps, okay? So, and this is an example. It's based on my patients, but I changed things up a little bit just to protect their information. So let's say there's a dad, dismissive avoidant, okay? Mom, anxious preoccupied, okay? 2 sons. One resembles dad and ended up leaning more dismissive avoidant. The other one, worked through more like family therapy, things like that. And the other son ended up a little bit more secure, okay? The older one is a bit more dismissive avoidant. The other one is secure, has a little bit of things leaning here and there, but overall more secure, more stable in relationships, stable jobs. Oldest son is more dismissive avoidant, and he physically resembles dad. So what ended up happening is mom and dad, they do get divorced at one point, and mom always insults dad and who he is. He's broken, he's detached, he's unloving, whatever. And she puts that on to her son. So what do you think ends up happening later in her life? Her son, just like dad left. Her son, oldest son, cuts her off. Because think about it, she's constantly insulting him. She might not think it. She thinks she's expressing herself. She thinks that she has the right to say this because this is what happened to her. Maybe, but you could say it another way. Why did I bring that up? Nurture who they are instead of always trying to change them. What could she have said to her son? She could have said, you do resemble your dad, and I will say that it did affect our marriage a lot. I love you for who you are, and I'm proud of you as my oldest son. You're very independent. You're a hard worker. And you get a lot of good traits from your dad too. But I want you to keep in mind that I think his distance created a rift in our marriage. And I want you to keep that in mind when you're starting to date and when you're starting to fall in love with individuals in your life and when you want to get married. Right? She nurtured a good part of him. I imagine that if she said that more, he would not feel the need to run away from her. So that's an example. I know that's not a romantic example, but it does still apply because she did it to her husband as well, right? The next one is recognize there are many ways to do something, right? Challenge your own beliefs. If the avoidant partner says, I don't want to have romantic intimacy unless we really, really trust one another. That's not an excuse. That's how they operate. But you're thinking we should have romantic intimacy because it's normal. I have worked with a lot of couples from my perspective and only my perspective and possibly other couple therapists and therapists in general. There is no normal. Whatever works for you guys works. So if you want to hold off on intimacy until it feels really, really right and it happens less frequently because of that, that's hard. You guys have to meet in the middle, but maybe there's some truth to that. Learn from each other. If you're the avoidant partner and your anxious partner is saying, sometimes we should go on dates even if we don't feel like it just for the security of our relationship, I agree with that. So I think as the avoidant partner, learn from that. Go ahead and try to learn to be more consistent. Don't operate just on your feelings and fears all the time. Learn to be more grounded, more secure, more strong, right? And anxious partners are pretty good with that when it comes to romance. So learn from your anxious partner. And as the anxious partner or the other partner, whoever, whichever one you guys are, learn from the avoidant. Maybe take things more genuine. Look at the details of things. Avoidants, they feel like even taking a walk is a big deal. Maybe it is. That could be pretty romantic, right? Learn to learn from one another. There are many ways to do a certain thing, right? The next one is pay attention to what your partner has been asking you, okay? This is really important. So I'm going to talk about a couple. Unfortunately, they have decided to split. And part of this is why, okay? I'm going to change things up a little bit. But I just saw this patient like a couple days ago, by the way. And that is when he told me that they both agreed they're probably going to separate. But one thing that he has always brought up and reoccurring in our sessions and couple sessions as well is that he has been continuously asking her. He's a very rigid person. He's avoidant. He does not like that she doesn't accommodate to his schedule. So she sleeps in. She doesn't work. and she sleeps until noon, sometimes 1 p.m. And he's not like that. He wakes up at 7. He's got his therapy early in the morning with me, and then he goes to work. Sometimes he goes in the office, sometimes he goes home. Then after that, he exercises. Then after that, he cooks dinner. He usually gets lunch out. He's very structured. Avoidants are like that typically, right? Not all of them, but a lot of them. And she was very unstructured. And all he was asking, which I don't think was a bad thing at all, he's really made a lot of progress. All he was asking is that she would, if she's expecting him to change his schedule, that she would also meet in the middle. He wasn't even saying he wasn't going to do it. He was willing to, because she stays up really late, like sometimes 12 p.m., 1 a.m., and he can't do that. He has to work. So he said if, they're having long drawn out talks, that she could save it for another time where they could stop so that he could sleep because he has to work in the morning. Or if they want to go on a date really late, he wished that she could be a little bit more accommodating to do it a little bit more earlier hours in the day instead of really, really late because he has to work. And she did not do that. She would be really sad. She would cry. She would tell me that he's being unfair, that he doesn't notice all the things she does, but she does do a lot, by the way. She takes care of the house. She cleans. Like, that's not what he's saying, though, but she took it that way. All that I'm saying is that this relationship dissolved because they both were not hearing each other. I think she wanted more reassurance from him. That's what that's what it sounded like to me. And what he wanted was for her to be a little more compromising. You could be a secure and secure couple, and that would still be an issue, right? Now, avoidant and anxious preoccupied makes it a lot harder because it's pretty volatile at one point. But what I'm saying is avoidants still tell you what they want if you listen. It's a little harder because they say it a little bit more indirect. They don't realize they're being indirect. They need to work on that. But try to pay attention to what your partner has been asking you continuously because it's important to them, even though you don't think it's that big of a deal, right? And the very last one, and I think this one's really important. It doesn't mean to not learn from other couples. It doesn't mean that you isolate yourself. All that I'm saying is don't compare yourself to other couples all the time. Be proud of what you guys have together. Relationships are not always and only about milestones. It's also about what you have built together as a couple, the communication you have, the connection, the extent of the love, the how hard you guys have worked to get this far, right? And so please, if you can take anything from this, please try to be more happy and genuine for what you have. It doesn't mean deal with mistreatment. That's not what I'm saying. All that I'm saying is if there are good things, look at them. You can look at the bad things too. I want you to, but look at them all. Maybe this relationship is not all that bad. Maybe. Just something I want you to think about, okay? I hope this was helpful to one person at least. Sorry if some of this stuff comes across offensive or harsh. I don't want to sugarcoat things because I feel like that's not helping anybody. I want to be honest with you guys. But I'm sorry if some things ever come across harsh. Pretty sure someone's going to yell at me in the comments. But you know what? I appreciate that too because I like all sides. I like all sides. So please comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.